broke the story, and they brought in the Indy Black Lives Matter speaker series, who told the students in required sessions that crime doesn't exist. It was made up by white people to round up minorities. And that is on video because it sounds like I'm being dramatic.
Yeah. This is for 6 months.
6 months.
So Indiana Public Schools chased you off. Why'd they do that? What did you do?
So I released several documents that showed that even though the district had requested that administrative level staff, to which I was a part, was if any parent asked if we were teaching critical race theory, I actually had this whole list of answers that I was to give them in a certain order. Mm-hmm. And that was incorrect and false. And I wasn't going to lie, much less lie to parents. Mm-hmm. It was it was like too many things right there. And so I collected a series of evidences of the critical race theory we do implement, the things that we ask our staff to do, the things we ask our students to do, the things like our racial equity professional development that lasted a whole day on October 18th, 2021, and all of the different things. Gloria Ladson-Billings actually was our keynote speaker for the day, of course. And how
much did she get paid for that?
I actually don't know. I've never sought out that figure, but some of her speaking events go for $25,000, $30,000. So
it's a good living if you can get it.
Yeah, man. Racial stoking for a few times a year for a large amount of money. Yeah. Goodness. It was really just collection of all of these documents and a few videos here and there that I just submitted to the public, things that we had on record, including one school that had abandoned its entire curriculum, everything, stopped school for 6 months to do a racial equity project. Didn't tell us. I had no idea my science teachers at that school had abandoned my pacing guide for the year, things they needed to do to pass the end of assessment test.
This is a middle school?
Butler Lab 60 in Indianapolis broke the story, and they brought in the Indy Black Lives Matter speaker series, who told the students in required sessions that crime doesn't exist. It was made up by white people to round up minorities. And that is on video because it sounds like I'm being dramatic.
Yeah. This is for 6 months.
6 months. Oh my God. Whole thing. They read this book called Ghost Boys in English, didn't learn anything about English or grammar or anything. They just talked about social things. In science, they studied environmental racism.
Mm. That's when hurricanes were a Klan hood, right?
Just as a former science teacher, you don't have enough time to go into as much detail as you would like on these subjects. And you're ditching 6 months of my curriculum that I painstakingly worked on.
Was this during COVID or before?
This was after.
This
was after COVID. And I was just astounded that we were doing any of this anyway. But I broke all of this and they immediately placed me on leave with pay, partly because they were afraid. They said, and I have on recording, they were afraid for my safety. They thought that like other teachers were going to get violent with me for having, distributed this. And then they said I had given teachers had reported I'd given them clinical anxiety. Mm. And they had to clear out the office that I worked in when I came to pick up my stuff because they were all terrified of me. So I told them it would have been easier if I would have just opened the door and shouted, unclean, unclean. Maybe that would have been a little more on point. And then this is great. You're going to love this. They considered putting me in an old abandoned planetarium as its caretaker because they couldn't figure out what to do with me. And there was no real reason to fire me. I was rated highly effective in the district twice. Yeah. I had the highest rated score of professional developments. Teachers that I worked with loved getting professional developments from me. And they didn't know what to do because the national news is reporting on it. If they fire me right before Christmas with a pregnant wife, it's going to look terrible.
Yeah.
And so they're like, well, should we make him this like janitor of this old planetarium? Like it's Mission Impossible, like send him into a Siberian radio tower.
Yeah.
And they finally ended up canning me very quietly after the new year, just as a very cursory sweep away with the administration. Yeah. But they did pay me through the entire Christmas holiday into January because they were terrified.
Yeah.
Because if you're placed on leave without pay, then I have a whole list of legal rights. They tried to stop my lawyer from coming into a meeting with HR with me.
Really?
Yeah. 20-minute argument. It was incredible.
What was their reasoning?
Well, I was allowed to have a representative from the union. But given that my picture is on a dartboard in the Indiana State Teachers Association, they weren't going to provide anyone. Because at that time, I'd helped, I think, 115 teachers leave the Indiana State Teachers Association. So there was no law or anything about what other representation you could have. Mm-hmm. Because back when they wrote that law, only you had to be a part of the union to be a teacher in Indiana. Well, since that had passed and Janus was Supreme Court, there was no precedent. So my lawyer just came in with me. It's like, look, it's his constitutional right. This could change his work. He is under investigation by the district officially. I'm going to sit in here with him and tell him what questions he should and shouldn't answer, which I answered all their questions because they didn't have anything on me and they still don't. So it was really hilarious to watch the whole process because they were so horrifically embarrassed. They are still sending people around to my events in Indiana, worried that I'm going to say more things about the school.